Leagues 5 is coming out in a matter of hours, so this will be your one-stop guide to helping you decide what relics and regions to pick based on your style. Let's go over the relics and combat masteries first, and then we'll talk about region combos for your style. On the screen you will see all of the relics. They are grouped into 8 tiers, and to progressively reach the next tier you must reach the points required to unlock it, which means doing a bunch of league tasks in your areas. Standard stuff. Let's go over the tier 1. So for the tier 1, I'm going to keep it simple. I would say the Amulet Wrangler, the Harpoon relic, edges out the other two because it speeds up Hunter, which is not an AFKable skill. The other two relics helps train skills that are AFKable, like the fishing and the woodcutting. If you're not the AFK type of player, then it doesn't matter too much which one you choose. But if you are unsure, I would just choose the Animal Wrangler relic. I think the woodcutting relic is the slightly least useful one, since woodcutting and FM are generally faster trained and AFKable than something like mining and smithing that the other relic will give you. Tier 2 relics is more skilling relics. I think all three though are very similar to each other in terms of how good they are. Will mostly come down to your preference of which skill you do not like to train or the content available in your regions. Definitely want to pick the relics that your regions lack the most in terms of training that skill. For example, I will choose the Gatherer relic because I find Herbler activity the slowest to train out of agility and thieving. Now let's talk about tier 3. For teleport relics, I would say the Compass is by far the best one, as it has the widest range of teles, including next to banks like the Shiloh village, and teleports to places near bosses. Like for example, in Mauritania you can teleport straight to the Barrow's chest. Unfortunately, I don't see any significant pros that the Fairy and the Bank relics have over Compass, so it's pretty safe to just pick Compass for just about everyone, but honestly all three are pretty good. Now we go on to tier 4. I would say Golden God is going to be the most picked for casual players. It also looks to be the most fun in this tier. Golden God will help you with skilling and combat, as it gives you passive magic XP with the auto alching, trained prayer, and GP for early gear. Reloaded and Equilibrium is definitely focused more for players who are skilling, maxing, or going for post-dragon rank league points. Reloaded and Equilibrium is definitely preference. But if you're not really sure what to pick, I would say Golden God is the one to go for. Tier 5, this one does not have a clear winner. It's going to be heavily preference. For example, Treasure Arbiter is great for league point efficiency and for people that love doing clues. Production Master is for players who are mostly going to be skilling in this league. Slayer Master is for players that are mostly focused on PVMing this time around, especially if your regions have a lot of Slayer bosses or enemies like Mauritania or Zaya. For tier 6, only have to choose between Banker's Note and Total Recall. Banker's Note is effectively infinite food and prayer in your inventory, so the only thing Total Recall has over it is just the special attack regen for some easier PVM. Banker's Note is also a better relic for skilling because you can note resources to avoid banking, amongst many other cool uses for skilling and just about anything else. Total Recall might be better for players that prefer to kill those easier bosses like I mentioned, like God Wards and some Slayer bosses, by spamming special attack weapons, but that's about it. Will not benefit you that much in stuff like raids or Inferno because you can't just leave and come back. Let's talk tier 7. Again, another balanced set of relics for tier 7. I think Grimoire is definitely the pick for most PVM focused players, as it gives you all spellbooks access and full prayer book abilities like Rigor, Augury, Piety, and all that. So you don't have to worry about things like unlocking Cannery region or maybe Desert, for your spell. For example, melee builds won't need Cannery for Piety. Honestly, I don't know the full potential of the Kingdom relic, but it's definitely feeling like a relic used for post-Dragon rank point grinding, or I guess maxing. Kingdom can provide things like coal, logs, planks, herbs, so it can cover a wide variety of skills over time, whereas Overgrown is super good for maxing out farming Herbler. I will say the average league player will probably pick Grimoire, but for the point efficient, skilling efficient guys, you can decide between the other two. Now we talk about tier 8, the last, which is the combat relics. This time around, all three choices are really good and fairly equal, and it's going to come down to preference. Jaggers did a good job this time with not making every tier have like obvious choices. The Last Stand is a really good relic, especially for newer PvMers, as it stops you from dying once every 3 minutes, and you gain insane DPS to clutch out of a fight. This relic will go really well for people that also will use things like Darox, because yeah, you're gonna be 1 HP with 255 strength for a few seconds, so you're gonna be hitting insane numbers. For example, Weapon Specialist is definitely for more experienced players that know how to maximize special attacks or prefer a special attack based PvM, preferably with a region combo that has good spec weapons. Like for example, if you're meleeing, you want D-Claws or range build with CZB. The Guardian, the last one, is the safest relic as it does consistent extra damage in any PvM encounter and requires little effort. If you're looking for just super chill PvM, I think Guardian is probably the one for you, as you just click it and it'll just do the thing for you. You don't have to wait to die, or you don't have to wait to click on the special attack, so much easier than the other two. Now we quickly talk about Combat Masteries. It is a new system they added for combat special abilities. Just imagine slightly more fine-tuned combat relics for each style. It's pretty simple. There are 10 combat tasks that you can do to gain a combat mastery point for a total of 10. The most important thing is that the max points you can raise a style is 6. So there's 4 lesser important points to go for, as those will go to the other skills of your choice. Your goal though is definitely to put your first 6 points into your main style. I would say that's a tip, and that's going to cover most of your overall power from combat masteries. First 6 points is also pretty easy to get even for a casual player, because you don't even have to do things like Jad or Zuk. So don't worry too much if you're afraid of Jad or Zuk and things like that, because you will still keep most of your power without doing any of those. Now we're on to the big part of this video, which is the region combos for each style that I would recommend. Few things to mention before we go further. I can't stress this enough, guys. Pick the combat style that your heart tells you. No matter what, you're going to be overpowered as hell for pretty much any content, even content you have yet to learn. The region that is Freemanic is the best support region hands down this time. So if you're unsure what like your third option is, I would say just pick that one, as the Echo Enemy and the Ring are really good for all 3 styles. Also, all 3 raids can now give you any of the mega rares like Shadow, Twisted Bow, Scythe, unlike the previous league, so that should really make planning some things a bit easier. Finally, I will include the veteran and casual builds for all 3 styles. I'm going to focus more on the veteran, since the casual build is also a part of that. I'm not covering region order in this video, as I want to talk mainly about the synergy between the region combos. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and talk about melee first. Quick note regarding the Piety Prayer, you can choose the Grimoire Relic for that instead of picking Cantor in this league, so I'm not going to mention Cantoring much. Mauritania Terran Freemy is probably the overall best damage combo for melee. This assumes you get the Echo Ring and the Ambi from Freemy, the Echo Quiver for melee boosted crystal armor, and of course the Scythe from raids. Scythe as usual will be the most dominant melee weapon against most bosses. Another fun thing to note is that if you pick Mauritania, you do have access to Darox especially, and Guttons. Darox will give you the highest possible hit with the Echo Gloves that you get from Mori, and Guttons will heal you every other hit and can overheal to 120 with the Echo Gloves. Now let's talk about option 2. This one is looking to be Mori, Arscania, and Frimi. The reason you would choose this one over the first build, which is Terran, is if you want to do those bosses in Arscania like Godwurst and Cerberus. Terran doesn't have that many like exciting bosses, I'll admit, so this could be good for some people that are conflicted. Arscania also gives you the Echo Weapon, the Dog Sword, which is combining every single Godwurst spec into one spec, and the effectiveness is even stronger, so it'd be actually really good for a melee build. Should be at least fun, right? And if you choose the spec relic, you can definitely capitalize on that one too. The main drawback is you do lose some overall power since the crystal armor is stronger than the Torva, but I think that's a pretty worthwhile trade. Now let's talk about option 3, which is going to be Mauritania, Freemanic, and Zaya. The drawback again is you miss on that crystal armor boost, but you do get a chance at Dragon Claws and Elder Maul and Dins, 3 different melee spec weapons for different purposes. This region is super ideal with the spec relic, as it could compete with the other builds, but requires more effort, but you could be having more fun if you prefer the special attacks. Now we talk about a more casual melee setup for newer guys who are not doing things like raids. Primitive Arscani Volamore is a good casual melee option. You can get the Blood Moon melee set, which is really easy because there is due protection. Also, Volamore has tons of mid-level bosses like the Moon's bosses, the Huey boss, Monks, and they're all melee centered. Even an endgame Coliseum too, which is melee centered if you decide to step up. Arscania also has, of course, the Dog Sword, which is like a pretty easy and safe spec weapon, do a lot of damage and heals you. And also easy meleeable content too, like Bandos and Zami, which will also give you some decent melee stuff like the Bandos armor and the Zarak spear. You also can do Sarah, I guess, melee too, if you're willing. And also you can do a bigger challenge like Nex if you want to step it up. Some other cool casual regions that are worth considering are Mauritania for easy barrels gear like the Guttons and Daraks that I mentioned with the Echo Gloves boosted power, or actually the Wilderness. This one's kind of sketchy because people can attack you, but I don't think there will be too many people trying to bug you like that. But you do get the Echo Kopesh, which is a very strong melee slash weapon, and I guess has stab too, that can AoE on occasion. So it could be really cool for Slayer too. And also a very strong offensive melee shield, stronger than even like the Infernic Defender. And it also has like insane immunity resistance to even like anti-fire, poison, whatever, things like that. Alright, we're done with the melee stuff. Let's go to the range builds. In terms of endgame builds for range, there's two main ways to look at it. You have the Zarai crossbow twisted bow route, which is Arscania Zaya Freemi, or the regular blowpipe route, which is Terran Arscania Freemi. Arscania gives you void range, which with the tier 6 range mastery becomes the best range gear over Missouri because you never miss. Freemi is actually a really solid region as always for range because you have things like the assembler to save ammo, which also gives you accuracy and strength, and this time around you get the Echo Jewelry, which will give you the best overall damage. However, I think Freemi is still, I guess, the least important out of the other regions, so if you really want to choose another region, you totally can replace Freemi, but you will lose some of that damage. Now we're gonna talk more specifics about these two builds. So we're gonna talk about the Zarai armor crossbow route with the T-bow. This one has the best consistent DPS for a range build, as you can attack and move and not lose DPS unlike the blowpipe. Zaya gives you the twisted bow chance for the BIS DPS against high magic enemies, which is a lot of bosses like I would say Cerberus or a bunch of the actual Chambers bosses, so many. You also get the Dex Scroll, so if you decide not to go for the Grimoire Relic, you can get that instead. You also get BIS Range Shield Twisted Buglet, which will go with the crossbow. Now we're going to talk about the Toxic Blowpipe range route. The regular blowpipe is actually stronger than the Echo Blowpipe when you reach tier 6 range because it has higher damage, less accuracy. But again, tier 6, you don't care about accuracy, you never miss, which is why Terran is a better pick for this route over Desert. Blowpipe route has the highest theoretical DPS for range overall, but it has a huge problem of you needing to stand still to achieve the best damage possible. So it's not as OP as you would think. There's a lot of PVM which you will want to move a lot, limiting the blowpipe's damage. Every time you move, the DPS goes down by half. However, you do get a Bofa, which is really good. Not as strong as the crossbow, but no twisted bow in this route though, which is a huge bummer. Unless you want to sub the Freemi for a raid region and lose out on the assembler and jewelry. So I would say overall, the blowpipe route, some might think it's the overall best, but it's actually probably a second. Now let's talk about region combos for casual players going range. I'll be honest, the two combos that I mentioned above is actually quite good for casual players as well, because even if you don't do raids, you can still get like an Armadillo crossbow from Sarah boss pretty easily in Arscania. And if you choose the Terran route with the blowpipe, well, the blowpipe's easy to get first of all, and the Bofa isn't that much harder to get as well in leagues. So you still have really good, easy to access ranged weapons regardless. Some other good casual regions though are Mauritania for the Caros with the Echo Gloves, because you do proc more times to hits. Volamore region is also a good casual region as well, because you get the Eclipse set, which is a really strong mid to early end game range setup. I'm pretty certain the crossbows and the blowpipe will beat out things like Carols and Volamore, so only pick it if you really just want more range options. Now let's talk about the magic builds. The strongest magic builds this league will absolutely have Freemi as their support region because Shadow will triple the bonuses of the Echo Jewelry for massive damage and of course accuracy. The Echo Jewelry will give you 15% magic damage, which will become 45% damage with the Shadow. With that being said, the strongest magic build is Zaya, Freemy, and Kandarin. Zaya gives Ancestral Best in Slot Magic Rope Set, Kandarin gives the Tormented Bracelet and Arty Cloak. And the nice part is you don't need to choose Desert anymore, as all raids can give you the 3 Mega Rares, including Shadow, via a scroll drop instead that lets you choose which Mega Rare to go for. Insane. If for some reason you do not want Kandarin, some good contenders for 3rd region are Wilderness for Imbued God Cape, or Ascania for the Eternal Boots, the God Cape being a bit better than the Eternal Boots. For the 3rd region, just pick the one that you prefer to do content wise, or region to supplement your other styles or mid-level setups. Now let's talk about more casual setup for Magicians. A more casual setup is going to be Freemy, Terran, and Volmor. Terran gives you the Swamp Trident, which is easy to get and it'll be your best casual magic weapon outside of the raids magic stuff like the Sang and the Shadow. You also get easy magic gear like Blue Moons alongside gear for other styles from the other moons. You can also choose Grimoire Relic to access Ancients without Desert. Freemy, Terran, Mori, another similar casual setup above, except the barrels will replace your Volmor gear, and you also get to use the Damn Echo Gloves to strengthen your barrel setup. Arrows with Echo Gloves of the Damn could be stronger than Swamp Trident overall, so I feel like this casual setup might be a little bit better than the Terran version. This setup can also benefit from the Grimoire Relics for Ancients, but again, you decide which content you prefer. That's about it, guys. Feel free to share your own build ideas because I would love to hear about it. I only covered the most standard ones, but hopefully you guys now have a better idea what regions and relics to choose. And if you're still not sure, feel free to join my friends chat, Mr. Space Iron Space Bar, to ask questions, or join the Discord and check out our leaks section. I will also be streaming most of my Leaks 5 journey on twitch.tv/Ricecup and probably the first few days on YouTube as well. So feel free to subscribe to the channel so you can pop in for more Leaks 5 content. We'd love to have you. Anyways, have fun in Leaks 5, guys. I'll see you guys soon.